Hello. I wanted to do a short late night video, and I was going to talk about the two videos that I posted. Was it yesterday or two nights ago? It's on Kodokoshi. Kodokoshi. What do we know about Kodokoshi? And I call it a foreseeable pandemic because it's already happening in Japan. It's already happening in South Korea, and I see that Japan and South Korea emerging economies, if not developed economies. And I see that phenomenon happening on the shores of the United States and in any Western country, i.e., Britain, Australia, Canada, Europe. And people need to look at Japan and South Korea and see what's going on. I put up two YouTube videos, YouTube documentary videos on the phenomenon. And I'm not saying this to spark fear or anything. I'm just trying to be reasonable with people. Excuse me. Oh, that. Oof. But anyway, what's Kudokoshi? What is Kudokoshi? Kudokoshi, the wave of solitary deaths ravaging Japan. Kudokoshi, a death in solitude. It is understood as Kodokoshi or solitary death to a phenomenon on the rise in Japan to a point of becoming a social problem. Kodokoshi, the phenomenon is showing that the the aged population in Japan, especially males. This happened after World War II when Japan lost World War II, and they were trying to rebuild the economy. And the Industrial Revolution came to Japan, and the guys that were in the military that came back to the civilian workforce, who left their families to go fight for the nation of Japan or the kingdom of Japan, because Japan is a monarchy system. Well, parliamentary system of government, but they have a king. Throat is dry, the air is getting drier, and the men that left the villages, the hinterlands of Japan, moved into the big cities like Tokyo to look for work, mostly engineers. And when they left their families, they ended up staying in the cities and not having any kind of social contact with their families. These men lived alone, and when the economy went into a bust, I'm talking about the Industrial Revolution, went into a bust, we have the information age coming in and the economy was changing. Most of these men lost their jobs, but they already grew older, they didn't get married, and they cut out relationships. Even the ones that got married cut out relationships with their family, and they lived by themselves, and they died in their homes. And when they died, it took a couple of days before the neighbors around them could smell the decaying remains of these people that passed away in their homes. It's happening frequently a lot in Japan. Why am I of concern? I'm of concern because of the way America is built today, or Western civilization is built today. We live in a port. Yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine who I call my work sister. She's a sister of mine. We just friends. No any kind of hanky panky, none of that. She's just a good friend. And I told her there's a rise in apartment construction everywhere because Vegas is expanding. A lot of people are migrating from California because California is becoming unbearable and unlivable. So people from California are moving this way. They even moving to Denver. They're moving to Arizona. The price of housing is going up because of this huge migration. When I was living in Sacramento, you could see that the Bay Area is the most expensive area. The cost of living is really high. I think it's the most expensive in the whole nation. So people that couldn't afford the Bay Area moved outwards into the Sacramento Valley, which was a little bit cheaper. In Sacramento, the rent was going up. You can always tell when the rent is going up every year. Now Sacramento has become really expensive. When I moved to Sacramento in 2016, it was fairly cheap. It was not cheap, but it was fairly cheap. But now Sacramento, my sister lives out there, and Sacramento is something else. And compared to San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco area, Sacramento is cheaper. But even then, you should know that Los Angeles and San Diego is in Southern California, Sacramento and San Francisco is in Northern California. So the people in the Bay Area, when I say San Francisco, I'm talking about all the cities around the San Francisco area. It's called the Bay Area, the East Bay and the West Bay area towards the ocean. They can't afford to live in these places, so people migrate into cheaper areas, look for take pay cuts and look for or they commute. It's a lot of commuting. I remember commuting 3 hours, just going to work and 3 hours coming back when I lived in Sacramento and I worked in the East Bay. It was tough. I spent most of a couple of years on the road. I lived half of my life on the road commuting. I hated that. But anyway, so these people are moving in to the Sacramento area and to the cheaper cities, to the raising up the cost of living there. And now those people that usually live in Sacramento, because they're seeing that the cost of living is going up, they can no longer afford it, so they're being kicked out and they're moving into places like Las Vegas, Arizona, Denver, and the cost of living of these places is going up. So I was talking to my work sister, and I said, "Look, I've seen a lot of due to this large migration, right? When I say migration, internal migration, I've seen a lot of apartment buildings springing up. There's houses, single family houses, all kinds of houses that they building out here. But there's also the rise in apartment, and in apartments are mostly lived by single people. Very rarely you see a family live in apartments. Not to say that people, families or couples with kids don't live in apartment. Not to say that because they do, but compared to single families and single people, these groups of people live more in apartments than in houses. So I've come to the conclusion that America makes money off of divided families because they make money off of there. So a divorced family, the man is kicked out of the house, the woman moves out with the kids, she go rents an apartment, she's living off of because basically the average salary for women in this country, especially black women, is $37,000 a year, and that's over 70%. So these single mothers or baby mamas or whatever you want to call them, they go live in these apartments, right? Whether it's in a nice area or rundown area, they live alone with their children in these apartments, mm, whether it's Section 8 or whatever you want to call it, or whether they're paying out of pocket because they work and take care of their kids. But the man is not in the house. The man lives over here in another apartment. So let's say apartments, the average cost of apartment is 1,500. A fractured family where the man is not in the house, he's paying 1,500 in this apartment, trying to maintain himself, keep a job, and pay child support, alimony to his ex-wife. Right? The ex-wife is taking all this money, including welfare money, to go rent another apartment here. Doesn't really make sense. It's not a sustainable way of us as a group to survive. So now this man is paying this money over here, and the woman is paying this money over there. Who benefits? The landlords and the developers, right? And that goes into the American economy. Whereas If a stable family has stayed together, a man with his wife and his 3 kids, be all staying under one roof, and they pay that 1,005 to keep the dollar in the household. The average, there's a saying, I was researching it, and they, there was the argument for it and there was the argument against it, that the circulation of the dollar in the black community is 6 hours. In every other community is anywhere from 6 days to 17 days, depending on that community. But for black communities, 6 hours, because you know why we consume a lot. When we have high rates of single mothers and baby mamas living independently in their apartment, all that money goes into just spending. Okay. Now let's go back to the term Kodokoshi. Kodokoshi is translation of the term that indicates the process by which large number of people die in most absolutely loneliness in their homes, the dead being unknown for a while and unusually not found for days or weeks, later due to the order of decomposition. What causes Kodokoshi in Japan? Um, Kodokoshi, or the solitary death, does not have single cause, being a multicultural phenomenon, but is generally considered that its high prevalence is due mainly to difficulties that can generate the combination of such demanding and professionally caused lifestyle, cultural factors, and progressive aging of the population. This is happening in America already, as far as the aging population, right? I don't want to go into too much details. There's 2 videos. You guys can go online and research it yourself, watch some videos about it. Maybe it can help you make better decisions. Um, why am I really talking about this? My colleague at office, we share the same office space, but we're in a divided space. He sits over on the other side, and he was a little bit down today. He was off, and in our morning meeting, he was asking to take leave to go bury one of his friend, a young man of 37 years old, um, who passed away recently, died in his sleep. But the good thing is that man was married and he slept by his wife and he didn't wake up. When they called the paramedics has tried to revive him, but somehow they knew, they told the wife that he had died 6 hours earlier. Cause of death remains unknown. This is just a short story my colleague was telling me. The good thing was he had a wife, right? And people that are living um single, especially unmarried folks, right? Just imagine you go to bed and not wake up and nobody even finds you, especially if you're the type that pays your rent automatic. um you pay your bills automatically from your account. It goes automatically to your collectors, like your rent goes to the landlord or to the company or developers. Your car notes, your utilities all goes to the bill collectors, right? Automatically. If something were to happen to you in your home, people are not going to find out for days or weeks. The only way people can find out is when um, the money runs out from your account and the banks start calling, and maybe you just stop showing up to work. And especially for people that are old in age, they tend to do this because when you're old in age, you tend not to move around a lot. You're older, you get tired a little bit easily. You don't want to be worried about certain things, so you do everything with convenience. So when you get to that 65, 70 years old, when you start living that kind of lifestyle by yourself, if this kind of phenomenon were to happen to you and you were to die in your house alone, it's gonna take some days before people are gonna find out. Now in Japan, they live very. uh, uh, mm, I've been to Japan a lot. I've been to Tokyo, been to Yokosuka, Yokohama, Shibuya. and Okinawa is a lot, thanks to the United States Navy. And I've got to see how their culture is. Their houses are really smaller and they're really close. So something like that happens, the neighbors is gonna find out, or they will find out. But in America, where we tend to, in America, where we live in suburbia, where we live in large acres of land, my house, there's a big backyard, and there's a huge space between your house and the next house, or even in an apartment where people tend to, because America has this individualism type of lifestyle. Everybody likes to mind their business. You're on your own. When this phenomena hit, it's gonna be bad. I'm just predicting that it's gonna start happening with the amount of people that live alone in this country, and with the amount of single families. Um, the only thing that I can argue against what I'm saying is, at least for men, it's gonna affect men more. But for women, they have children, and they don't hear from Katrina or whatever. Somebody's gonna call, but men not so much. Um, yeah, you'd be surprised who calls me to find out about my well-being. Pretty much nobody. Very, very few people, except my family members. Um, why am I really concerned about this? Because we live alone, and for us black people, we make anywhere from 37,000 to 42,000 a year, and this is average middle class individual people, right? A year, and that's before taxes, right? You will never have enough money to put aside for retirement because you need about at least $3 million when you retire from age 65, and that money to last you to the age 85. If you're gonna live past 85 into your 90s, you need that amount of money. 37,000 and $42,000 a year cannot provide you that kind of savings. You're gonna have a shortfall. The beauty about marriages and people in the legal unification is, if she made 37,000, he made 42,000 or 45,000. When the man passes away, if he's older and he passes away first, or whichever of the spouse passes away, some of the social security go to the other person, and you're able to still live, even though you risk some shortfall on that amount of salary. Because let's say 80K a year for a married couple who has kids in the middle class, you're able to cross that threshold of $3 million for retirement. You might be able to cross that threshold, but as a single person, for you to meet that $3 million to live from, to sustain yourself from 65 to 85, right? You need to make up making at least 120K, 120K to 150K. Then even when as a single person and you're paying your bills, for females, the health for females is more complex than for men. Um, if you're living in a duplex as a older female, you're gonna find it difficult to walk up the stairs to go to your bedroom. That's just a fact. That's why most elderly people, they sell their houses, they sell their duplexes to go live in a ranch style housing or a flat. It's easy to walk to the bedroom, or they just sleep in the living room. Most times they sleep in the living room with divorce court playing in the background. But why am I bringing this? Because this is gonna be a problem, at least for Americans, and I mean all Americans, but especially in the black community. So people need to start planning for old age and for moving on to the next life. That's what people don't do. Um, it's inevitable. The moment we were born, death was promised to us. like all living things die, we're not exempt from that promise. So people need to start living together. And I always advocate for people to be in the best version of themselves, and try to show good character, and try to be more cooperative. Um, how marriages work is when two people are cooperative. You will always hit um, roadblocks and obstacles. All those things is bound to play out. Marriage is boring. It's work. It's not a Cinderella story. It's not a Snow White story. Part of the problem in this country is the disnification of love. Like I said in my last video, if your marriage or unification is based on value, it's gonna probably gonna last longer. But if it's just based on love at first sight, and something make your heart flutter and your coochie tingle and whatever it is, it's tied to conditions. Once those conditions leave, the love goes, that unification dissolves. That's the problem in this country today. One of the varying problems. There are a lot of variables, and I'm trying to keep this on to Kudokoshi because it's gonna happen here in America. I see it happening. I did some research about it. While in Japan was mainly caused by economic forces and the men not getting married, and now they die alone. It's easy for men to just die alone. For us men, we accept our fate in certain things. But for me, that's not the legacy I want to leave behind. I want to, if I ever transition to the other side, I want to be in the arms of loving family and people being there. That's the goal. Um, Kodokoshi is coming, people, with 72% of unmarried women in at least unmarried families or married women. Eh, It's gonna be that consequence by the time we, especially generation X, who's now in their 50s, and millennials is right after generation X, because now we're now in our 40s, so we're pushing up there. These things start this phenomena is gonna start manifesting by 50s, 60s, 70s, 80, and it's gonna happen in large numbers. I'm just going by research. This is not me trying to read the book of Revelation here. This is what I'm seeing. It's already happening in Japan. In South Korea, the unmarried women are committing a lot of suicides. There's a literature and study on that. The marriage, the unmarried women who were supporting themselves, because in South Korea, not every woman want to submit to the patriarchy, right? And some of them want to live alone, and they were florists, and they could only pay afford to pay as long as they work. But by the time they got to retirement age, um, they didn't have the savings to support that single life. The social welfare in most Western countries are not built for single people. The social welfare structure in most Western countries, including the United States, are not built for single people. If you're in the United States, for you to meet those savings, you have to make at least 120K to 150K and above. And even then, loneliness at 65 and 70 is hard, especially if you're a female, you know. So that's why it's good to have a support system. Um, it's good to have a man in the house. It's good to rely on somebody, because you can make all this money, and women's health is more complex than men. Women start their health start breaking down, even though they tend to live longer than men a little bit. Because us men, if we marry a younger female, we tend to die off first. That's just facts. But if we marry a female that's around our age, or women that are around our age, their health system start to break down faster than males. You guys can go research this stuff. Right now, this is just it's I don't know point put it out as fact, but it's something that I've gained from reading and understanding. Maybe if I have time, I'll do a research. I want to keep this video short. That's the reason why I put up those two videos there. People should go and research this stuff and look inwards and reflect in their current moment and and where are they now and where did they want to be. And if you're not where you want to be, how do you get to where you want to be? You know, it's all about outcomes for me. I've always practiced structure and I've always preached structure and discipline. The lack of structure and discipline has caused the this single living in America where people are living in single family homes and in apartments by themselves or with their children, and there's nobody there. For instance, let's say this is why I have a problem with women saying they don't need no man, they can do all bad by themselves, blah 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 blah. The hurricanes and the tornadoes that happen in the south and the midwest when there's flooding and there's all this stuff, who comes to save the day is men. If something were to happen and you call the police, who you expecting to show up at your door? It's not really police, bunch of police women. You're expecting a bunch of men. So when people start saying we don't need no man, I can do all by myself, and you put up this feminist, womanist idea because you're angry. Most people, most women that put up those kind of videos, they're angry. But you know what? You're angry about the men you chose in your life, the men who disappointed you. You're angry about them. Do not let other men pay for the mistakes of the men you chose. But anyway, Kodokoshi is coming. It's coming in the next 15 to 20 years. And that's all I got to say about Kodokoshi. You guys go read up on it. And unless we change our thinking and our culture and our lifestyle to start putting structure and discipline in our family, to start being together so that we can survive together, Kudokoshi is coming. And I'm gonna end this stream because I'm really tired. I've been working late, and hopefully I can come up with more videos. Um, I don't want people to just think that I'm having all these videos to blame women for everything. I'm blaming culture. I'm blaming the lack of accountability. Yes, I understand a lot of contributing factors that are beyond our control, especially in the black community. But we do have accountability. We do have the power to control what we can control. And I will end this video right here and see you some other time. Good night and stream.